So we all know that London is one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in and also to study in. But exactly how expensive is London? Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Shivan and I'm a fourth year medical student studying at King's College London, and I've also been living in London for the past 4 years. So trust me when I say I know a thing or two about how expensive London really is and how to live here as a student on a budget. So this video is really a remake of a video that I made back in 2021 about the cost of living in London as a student. Now that video was received very well and I covered almost everything in it, but given inflation and other changes to the UK economy and general costs of living, those numbers have changed quite a bit since then. I decided to update all that information in this video, which is a new cost of living video that will be applicable from 2024. So all the information I'm going to share with you in this video comes from a few different sources. First of all, from some research that I've done on the internet, seeing what different websites say about the cost of living in London. Secondly, from my personal experience of living in London and the cost of my daily expenses. Also what I've seen firsthand through what my friends spend and what my friends' costs are, and those different sources all contribute to provide you with this information of how expensive London really is. So of course it won't be just one number that London is, £821 a month or something like that. There'll obviously be a range which depends on a wide variety of factors, such as the type of lifestyle you like to live and various different choices that you make. But my job today is going to be providing you with that range. Before we get further into this video, I want you to go check out my YouTube channel, because over there I make videos about medical school and university. So other loads of helpful videos if you're a university student or a medical student in the UK or otherwise. Vlogs, day in the life videos about how to get into medical school and university, even videos on travel and lifestyle. So go check it out, and if you think my videos are something you'd be interested in, then smash that subscribe button and join me for a lot more. But without any further ado, let's jump right into this one. So in terms of studying in London, I'm not really going to talk much about tuition fees, because that's something that you can find out really easily on your university's website. So in general, if you're studying in one of the top universities in the UK, so I'm talking like top 50 universities in the UK, it's going to cost you somewhere between £20,000 to maybe £50,000 a year in terms of tuition fees. That's just a general number, don't quote me on it, and your university will probably fall somewhere within that range. But let's move on to cost of living and living expenses, because that's what we're discussing in this video. So I further would like to divide cost of living into two different sections. First is your rent or accommodation, and the second is your other daily living costs. So rent and accommodation is separate because that's one big fixed cost that gets sent off together usually, so it's not something that you have to worry about or you have to budget on a day-to-day basis. Let's talk a bit about rent. So rent will depend on again a variety of factors. So the first important factor that rent will depend on is whether you're living in student accommodation or a private flat. So typically what I've seen is living in a flat tends to be cheaper if you're living with flatmates. So if you're living with one friend, two friends, three friends, it's probably going to be cheaper. Living in student accommodation will be cheaper if you're living alone. Now if you're talking about the exact numbers, rent in London is, for a 2-bedroom flat, is anywhere between £1,500 to £3,500 a month. That's 2 beds. So if you're sharing that 2-bed flat with someone, that means for you it'll be around £750 to £1,750 a month. I'd say the average is around £2,400 a month. Again, this is quoted from some research that I've done. And so 2,400 means on average you'll be spending £1,200 a month on rent. This is for flats. For student accommodations, there's a huge range. It really depends on what student accommodation you choose. You can find student accommodations that, again, are £800 per month, and you can find student accommodations that are £2,000 per month. So it really depends on what level of accommodation you want to go for. My personal view on this is, if you're paying £2,000 a month for student accommodation, you might as well pay to get a nice flat, because you could get a really nice flat with that much money. So yeah, I personally wouldn't stay in student accommodation for £2,000 a month, but each to their own. Rent is also something that's climbing every year, and each place will continue to get more expensive with each year. Remember that. And now let's move on to daily expenses. So this is really the variable part, the part that you are going to have to budget, the part that you are in real control of on a day-to-day basis, and these are the costs that your choices will really inform and influence. Living expenses can also be divided into various sections, and these sections are things like groceries, outings, travel, bills, and then miscellaneous costs as well. So let's break it down one by one. Firstly, you have groceries. So groceries personally are my biggest expense every month, because you're eating every day, 3 meals a day. That's a lot of food that's required. If you're someone who cooks at home often, you'll also be spending more on groceries than someone who doesn't, but at the same time you'll be saving on eating out, which will potentially be more expensive. Your grocery costs are going to depend upon where you shop and what you shop for. So if you shop at grocery stores like Lidl and Aldi, you're probably shopping at the cheaper end or cheapest end of the spectrum, and you'll be spending less on your groceries. If you're shopping at places like Marks and Spencer and Waitrose, you'll be spending on the higher end. Usually getting fresh food and raw ingredients is also cheaper than buying prepared meals. That cost will end up being higher. Additionally, if you want to save on grocery costs, then what I'd recommend is, when you're in the store, look at the price per unit. Sometimes one product may be cheaper than the other, but if you look at the actual value you're getting for the amount of the product you're buying, it may be more expensive than the product that has the more expensive absolute value. And with all that in mind, I'd say your grocery costs, again, depending on your consumption and your dietary requirements, for example, if you're vegetarian, non-vegetarian, will be somewhere between £200 to £500 a month. I mean, I'm sure you could maybe even spend less than £200 a month, but that would require strict budgeting, serious planning, and probably not a lot of consumption. Next, we have outings. So outings are another big expense in London, because London involves a lot of going out. The main thing you do when you meet a friend over here, or you're meeting someone, is, do you want to go out for dinner? Do you want to go out for lunch? Let's grab a bite. Let's grab a coffee. Something like that. Let's go for a drink. So you're going to end up spending a lot on outings overall. If we're talking about the cost of eating a meal out in London, at an average restaurant, that's not luxurious, but at the same time is also not something like a fast food chain, you're looking at spending between £12 to £15, maybe even up to £20. The cost of eating at McDonald's, somewhere between £5 and £10, again depending on your order. And if you're eating at a luxurious restaurant, so like a fancy place, it's probably going to be around £30 to £40 minimum per person. Now again, how often you eat out really depends on you, but I'd say that realistically you're not going to eat out less than 5 times in a month, unless you're really making a conscious decision to completely avoid eating out, and you're probably not going to eat out more than 20 times, and that too is only if you're someone who's really keen on eating out all the time and you're making a conscious decision to do so. So given between 5 and 20 times, and the average cost I'd say of eating out is around £15, and let's take into account coffees and stuff like that as well, which are £4 to £5, maybe an odd drink which may be £10. So you're looking at your cost of outings per month being somewhere between £100 minimum to probably £300 per month. Next, you have travel. Now, travel is a hidden expense, I'd say. It's something that you don't realize at the moment. Like, you don't even think before tapping your card at a tube station or tapping your card when getting on the bus. But this is a cost that can really add up over time and make a significant dent in your bank account. So the cost of traveling in London broadly is around £2.50 to £3 to travel in the tube within zone 1 and maybe zone 2. And then for a journey on the bus, it's £1.75. And then a train is really variable. If you're taking a train, it could be anywhere from £5 to £20. And then Ubers are typically between £10 and £30 to get anywhere to anywhere in central London. Now again, this cost is highly dependent on your lifestyle. So if you're someone who lives close to their place of work and at the same time lives close to a busy area, like where there are a lot of things to do, you may not be making many long journeys, and therefore you may be saving on your travel cost. At the same time, if you're someone who is living out a little bit to maybe save money on rent, or someone who has to commute pretty far to work, like I have to do for medical school at the moment, I have to take a train every day to Dartford, and this costs me around £10 every day. So if you're someone who has to do something like that, your travel costs will be much more significant. Again, if you're someone who takes Ubers, again, your travel costs will be much higher. So I'd say travel costs would come in at a minimum of maybe £50 per month and go up to a maximum of maybe £200 per month. Because let's say you're taking a train, which is £10 a day. Let's say you take the train 20 times in a month, not even counting your tube journeys. That expense will rack up to around £200. Yeah, so 50 to 200. Then you have bills. So bills are something that you're going to have to pay if you're living in a flat of your own. You're not going to have to pay as many bills if you're living in student accommodation, because things like water, gas, energy are all included in your rent. I'd say energy costs, again, they really vary on where you're living, how much your energy usage is, and what time of the year it is as well. But it's usually around, I'd say, £50 to £100 per person per month, yeah. And then you have Wi-Fi costs, which would be around, I'd say, £15 to £40 a month, depending on whether you're living alone, what Wi-Fi you subscribe to, and what package you have. So 15 to 40. And then phone bills, Netflix, Amazon Prime subscriptions, maybe educational subscriptions, that'll come out to another, let's say, 20 to 30 quid a month. So how much does that add up to? So that's £85 to £170 per month, approximately, for bills. And then, of course, you'll have some miscellaneous costs every month. That's something you can't count out, and something that gets missed very often. For example, if it's a friend's birthday and you need to buy them a gift. Suppose you need to buy something new for yourself. Clothes, maybe a piece of furniture, maybe an appliance. Yeah, there's so many costs that you can't predict and won't be consistent every month. So I would budget £50 to £100 per month for that as well. So overall, if we add all of that up, we get a range of £500 to £1,300 a month to live as a student in London. Now that's a hefty cost, I can't lie. £500 is on the lower end. That's if all the conditions of minimum spending are true for you, which is very unlikely. For example, you spend the minimum amount possible on groceries while eating out and going out the minimum amount. You live next to your work or your university, and at the same time you're not paying any bills. You live in student accommodation and you have the minimum miscellaneous costs possible. So that's a very idealistic situation where you'd be spending £500 a month. On the other end of the spectrum, £1,300, that's where you're quite comfortable. You could probably make some savings if you're up there by making a few changes here and there, but again, that's up to you. For most people, the real number will fall somewhere in the middle of these two values. Probably for most people, it'll be somewhere between 800 to £1,000 per month. And now, for a frame of reference, let me give you some statistics that I found online on a few different websites for what people think is the average cost of living in London per month. This is not necessarily specific to students, but this is what they found the average cost of living in London per month to be. So one website, I think it was Numbeo, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they averaged out what all the daily basket of goods are, like for example the main staples in your groceries, the commonly visited restaurants, stuff like that, and they came up with a figure of 1,000. So I got the number wrong. It's actually £1,099 or 1,100. Let's just call it that per month. That's without rent. And another website, which is housinganywhere.com, found the average cost of living in London without rent to be £996. So overall, all these numbers, I know they vary a little bit, but they should give you a broad idea of how expensive London is and how much you really need to budget per month to spend in London. But although it is an expensive city, it's a city with opportunities, and if you're starting here, it'll definitely set you up well for the future. So don't feel disheartened by looking at these overwhelming numbers. London is expensive, but you definitely get maybe not exactly what you paid for, but you do get something great in return. So I hope this video was helpful, and I hope it gave you some good insights into the cost of living and expenses in London as a student and in general. If you did find it useful and insightful, then definitely drop a like down below on this video. Smash that subscribe button to join me for many more videos. Share this video with anyone you think might find it useful, and if you have any comments, leave them down below. And with that, I will see you in the next one.